Hello, everyone. I'm honored to present to you this PowerPoint presentation on the topic Introduction to Web Application Penetration Testing. I am Diana Muthoni. I work as a cybersecurity analyst. I am also an IT systems auditor and also I've worked as a SOC analyst. So to connect more or to know more about me, you can find me on LinkedIn or Medium with the attached handles. So for this session, we will be covering what exactly web application penetration testing is, phases of penetration testing on internet, web application. These web applications, basically, these are cloud-hosted web apps. So the next one is gonna be ethics and legal boundaries. Getting started in web application pen testing. I hope you enjoy and you're gonna learn a lot. So, what is web application penetration testing? So basically, it's the primary objective behind a web application penetration test is to identify exploitable vulnerabilities or weaknesses and technical flaws in applications before attackers are able to discover and exploit them. So this is why you just do it ethically. You have the permission to do this. You have the permission to ethically hack into a web application to be able to get to see the vulnerabilities and the weaknesses that exist in that particular web app. So it reveals real world opportunities attackers could use to compromise applications in order to get access to sensitive data or even take over systems for malicious and non business purposes. You've had severally some websites have been hacked and people have been able to gain let's say credentials or very, very sensitive data of a particular organization from just the web application. So the types of penetration testing, so there's black box testing, white box testing, and gray box testing. Black box testing, basically, the tester has no prior knowledge of the system he or she is gonna be testing. So this is where you only know the URL to that web application, just that. Or yeah, just that. So you know nothing about it. You don't even know what that web app contains. You just know nothing about it. So for white box testing, the tester has complete information that the tester needs to perform the test uh, for the web application. So this is where you're given the URL to the web application. You have, if at all the web application has any login portals or any intranets or anything, you're given even test accounts, you know? So you're given a test user, test username, test passwords to be able to do further testing with that. So this is the white box testing. You have everything. So for gray box, you have partial knowledge of the system. Yeah, so just in between black box and white box, you kind of know about the web application. You kind of know about it here and there, maybe what is going on. It has a portal, it has this and this, but you really don't have maybe the necessary credentials to be able to do further testing, or you don't have what would I call it? You do not have test user accounts to be able to further your testing. So this is the case of the gray box testing. So the next one is the phases of web application penetration testing. We start with recon. The next is gonna be scanning and enumeration, exploitation, post-exploitation, and then reporting. So the next slide just shows you a pictorial design for the faces. We're gonna start with recon, which is reconnaissance. So recon, it involves gathering information about the target so as to come up with the possible attack vectors towards the target. So basically, this is where you have a URL or you know the website. So you just wanna know more about the that particular web application. You want to know what is in this web application, what are the stakes involved? What is the IP address? Can I do more OSINT on it? So here, attackers, or rather the tester, gathers publicly available sensitive information. So some of the recon types are passive recon, which involves gathering information from publicly available sources without directly interacting with the target system. So this is where you do OSINT. OSINT is open source intelligence. You use the tools like WHOIS, DNS records. Sorry, this one is supposed to be records. Google Docking, leaked information. So for leaked information, you can use several tools. You can use GitHub to be able to find out leaked information. And this kind of brings out this somehow, if you're very thorough with it, you can get very, very valuable information with it. You can get emails involved. You can get credentials. You can get, personal identifying information like contact, a name, email. So the other one is active recon. This involves directly engaging with the target to gather information. So it's where you use the harvester, sublister, AMAS, CRT. So yeah, gonna continue to scanning and enumeration. So what are the objectives here? So the first objective would be to discover the live hosts, IP addresses, and open ports. So the other one is discover operating system and system architecture, services running on host and their versions, technology stack enumeration. So this is where you use Opalizer, WhatWeb, this is where you get to identify, is this web application sitting on WordPress? Has WordPress been used to be able to develop this web application? So if it's WordPress, then what are those vulnerabilities embedded, or rather connected to web applications that have been built using WordPress? So this directory and file enumeration. So some of the tools you get to use are Nmap, a very strong tool, Nikto, Dealbuster, NetSparker, arranging tool, AMAS, WP Scan in case of website running on WordPress. So with these tools, you get to identify open ports, you get to identify IP addresses, you get to identify the services running on that particular web application and their versions. So yeah. Uh, Next one is exploitation. So the goal here is to identify and exploit vulnerabilities. So where do you focus? Number one, or WASP top 10. This has to be your foundation when you're doing any VPT on VPT means vulnerability assessment and penetration testing. So this has to be your foundation when it comes to web applications, when it comes to APIs, when it comes to mobile, when it comes to any sort of hacking. Just consider the OWASP top 10. It contains the XSS, CSRF. This is cross-site, request forgery, SQL injection, cryptographic failures, authentication flows, among others. You can, yeah. So this is where you get to find things like test login forms. You target things like test login forms, input fields, cookies, sessions, tokens, APIs. Yeah. So you're gonna use tools like Burpsuit, Postman for APIs, browser developer tools. That's why you get to tweak around the session tokens, the cookies, the session tokens that you've been allocated. See if there's a way you can manipulate those tokens into maybe getting another session or getting an authenticated session with the same session token, which is manipulated, or using custom scripts. So this is where Python scripting and Bash scripting comes in, where you really don't want to do so much manual work. You would want, a program or the computer or a code to really help you into doing those like just automating some of the tests. So that's where scripting comes in handy. The next stage is now the post-exploitation. So the goal here is to access, impact, and maintain access. So the focus areas is extract sensitive data, PII credentials, check privilege escalation possibilities, explore lateral movement opportunities if applicable. So the last one is reporting. But before I go to reporting, I'm gonna I'm gonna first emphasize on post-exploitation. So what happens in this stage? Number one, you've already done your scanning. You've identified the open ports. You've identified that, you know what? This particular web app has a portal. A portal is just a login page. So number one, does this portal support MFA, multi-factor authentication, or 2FA? If not, what kind of credentials are needed to log in into this? Is it an ID number and a 4-digit PIN, or what exactly is this, you know? So if, let's say, let me just give you a scenario. This has happened to me. It's a real world scenario. So it happens that I was doing a web application penetration testing, and the web app had a login page, and so that login page was supposed to be accessed by the customers. It's a financial organization, and so the customers should access that login page to be able to get to withdraw, deposit cash, raise inquiries, raise any problems that they have, check their balances, So what was needed to be able to log in into that is just an ID number and a 4-digit PIN. So ID number is the username and a 4-digit PIN. So basically, you're gonna sit down and think, and you're like, so for an ID number, an ideal ID number in Kenya has 8 digits. And we already know that the password is 4 digits. So how do I go about this? Number one, for the ID number field, I think it's possible to use a payload with numbers, 8-digit numbers from not zero, from 1, 8 ones, that is 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, and then use a payload from 8 ones up to 9 ones. Yes, 8, 9. Sorry for that. I'm confusing this. So after that, the using Papsuit now. So at this instance, I used Papsuit, BAP Intruder, to be able to brute force into that using that particular payload. So it's gonna iterate through the numbers, and then if an ID is valid, it's gonna return a different status code. So basically, I did this. It was successful. I got several valid ID numbers. So now here you have the ID numbers. You need a password. The password is not that hard because it's a 4-digit PIN. With a valid ID number, you can really get a password, You can really get a PIN. You can actually get a PIN. So what do? You just use the Babsuit intruder again. And then in this instance, we're not going to use the 8-digit payload. We're going to use the 4-digit payload. Already we have a valid ID number. So what do? Just brute force the PIN number. So again, with a valid ID, just brute forcing, and I got the right PIN number. So, well, that enabled me to have access to be able to log in. When you log in, you can change password. You can just get an account takeover. You can, if you're that malicious, you can withdraw that money. You can do whatever you want with that account. But I was bound by the contract and the scope of the project. I couldn't do anything further from there, because anything else would be a breach of contract, So yeah, that's how it's so interesting. It gets interesting. So the last phase is reporting. So here, the goal here is to clearly document findings for the stakeholders. You achieve this by developing a well-readable and actionable report, which is the following: executive summary for non-technical people. So the technical details with steps, observations. So basically, this is the finding. What have you found? Maybe it's a lack of multi-factor authentication. Maybe it's a XSS. The login page is vulnerable to SQL injection. It's vulnerable to XSS. There are little to no cryptographic measures, So that's the observations of findings. The POC, this is the proof of concept. This is when you got in there, of course, you have to capture as screenshots in this instance, capture exactly what you're doing. This is now the POC, the proof of concept, because again, remember, this report, you're not writing it for yourself. You're writing it for the organization, You're writing it for the board, for everyone involved, And so everyone has to get a clear understanding of whatever is going on, whatever has been found. So in this instance, you really need to have strong POCs. You can't just get a finding and just ignore that. I really don't need these screenshots or something like that. Someone's gonna ask you, how can we be sure that you got that? How sure are we? How sure are you? You gotta show them the POC. So the other one is the risk rating and CVSS score. This is a high risk, medium risk, low risk. So the other one is the recommendations and remediation. So this is why you just note down. We found that after having this finding and the risk rating, just write how can we be able to resolve this, and how can we be able to prevent this from happening again in future. This is where the recommendations and remediation comes in. So that's all about reporting. So I would also want to touch a little bit more on penetration testing on internet web applications. So these basically are web apps that are hosted on cloud, maybe Azure or AWS. So the target is internet apps hosted on Azure or AWS, often integrated with SSO or Azure AD. So the objectives here, sorry for that. Objectives here is to enumerate cloud-based identity and app configurations, discover internal endpoint, login flows, exposed services. So the key tools, number one, AAD internals. This is just one of that tools that will always give you what you want. So you gotta get the tokens, enumerate Azure AD, backdoor app registrations, road recon or road tools is another tool that comes in handy. Visualize Azure AD structure, enumerate users, roles, service principals. There's also Bloodhound, but of course, more research is needed in this. So some of the web applications hosted on cloud usually have this kind of URLs, the HTTPS login.microsoftonline.com. So basically, and then the tenant ID, and then that's just a sample of a URL for a web app that is cloud hosted. So what do you look out for when it comes to cloud-hosted web apps? So number one, all authentication misconfigs. Excuse me. Weak conditional access policies, misconfigured API permissions, internal subdomains, that's internet.company.com, with Cloud SSO, leaky Azure AD info via login microsoftonline.com, misused app registrations, credential reuse, or weak session controls, lack of MFA or insecure token handling. So basically, these are, I would say, the things that keep on coming up they keep on recurring when it comes to cloud-based web apps. So, the other segment we're going to be handling is the ethics and legal boundaries when it comes to penetration testing, and in particular, web application penetration testing. So, number one, always get permission. Have a well-written contractual agreement which fully defines the scope. Test on legal platforms like the DVWA, Just Shop, report responsibly. So, what I'm trying to communicate here is please don't go to organizations' web apps and start doing your tests there. If anything, God forbid, if anything bad happens, maybe you do a DDoS, or just something happens that interferes with their day-to-day operations, and then from doing some forensics here and there, it is identified that this particular IP was doing this and that and that, and that IP is tied to you. I mean, you're gonna have to face the legal consequences that comes with it. So really have a contractual agreement. It saves you, it protects you. So the other one is for practical purposes, you can test on DBWA or Juice Shop. So getting started in web application pen testing, number one, just learn the basics. That is networking, understand these protocols, understand the layers, understand the OSI model, understand what are they called? Just understand the basics of networking, the subnetting, IP addresses, protocols. All these things to do with networking, just have the basics. The other one is going to be Linux and Windows fundamentals. When it comes to Linux, really working with a terminal, creating directories, creating files, writing into files, permissions here and there, saving, using various softwares in the Linux OS, for the Windows, how to interact with PowerShell, command prompt. So, yeah. Number two, practice, practice, practice. You can use practice labs like Try Hack Me, Hack the Box, which other Pico CTF, among others. So the other one would be engaging in bug bounties or CTF challenges. Another one may be taking a certification, EGPT, CEH, or SCP, and others, and then build your portfolio. I mean, just leverage on LinkedIn, connect, send those connections to people, send them, talk to people, approach people, DM people, and be very consistent in this. So my final sentiments on this would be, if you're getting in or if you're in already, number one, be very open-minded. This field is one of the fields that 1 minute you know something, the other something new has come, and you have to grasp it. Just be very open-minded when it comes to learning and growth. Constantly learn and research. Start where you are, and gradually grow. Just grow into it. Sometimes it gets overwhelming. True, you get confused, very, very confused. Imposter syndrome kicks in, but you gotta keep showing up. You just have to keep showing up again and again and again. And so without showing up with that consistency, it becomes a little bit easier. Yes. So the other one would be network, both virtually and physically, on tech conferences, LinkedIn, friends in tech, WhatsApp groups, be very, very consistent. I will insist on that again and again and again. So practice a lot, and then, I mean, just enjoy the process. Enjoy it so much. Enjoy, grow into it, learn into it, and embrace the journey and the process, Yeah. So thank you so much, and all the best in your journeys. And thank you for going through the entire presentation. I hope you've gotten to learn a thing or two. And yeah, cheers. In case of any questions, feel free to ask. And yeah, thank you so much. Bye.